I intended to do this video on last night, but I fell asleep. I laid down, closed my eyes. I was out like a light. And maybe it's because of the fact that I have a toothache and I took some pain medication, and the pain medication caused me to go to sleep. I'm going to blame it on the medication. It made me go to sleep last night and I was not able to make my video. But I want to speak briefly on the white guilt smokescreen. The white guilt smokescreen. Now, before I get started, I would like to invite you to click on the Cash App link in the description box or click on the PayPal link and financially support this channel. If you feel this video helped you out, if this video edified you, I invite you to click on the Cash App button or the PayPal link button and support this channel. What is white guilt smokescreens? It's interesting to me that, and it's also mind-blowing to me, that so many white Americans have bought into the white guilt smokescreen. So many whites are walking around feeling guilty about what happened in a time that they didn't even exist. Black people are walking around placing guilt and shame on a people that had nothing to do with their so-called ancestors being enslaved. That's always been mind-blowing to me. And like I said in prior videos, in many cases, I cannot relate to the struggle of Black Americans because I've never experienced what many Black Americans claim to experience. Neither any of my family members experienced what many so-called Black Americans say that they experience. In my humble opinion, much of what so-called Black Americans experience today is a result of their own doings. Their experiences that they brought to themselves, that they welcome to themselves, experiences that they've accepted, adopted, and took ownership of. And until they decide to strengthen themselves and pick themselves up out of their condition, they will remain in a condition with their hands out, placing blame on people that have nothing to do with their current struggle. But the responsibility falls upon themselves. So now we're in a time where white people are afraid to tell you what they really think about you, what they really think about certain political issues, for the fear of being labeled a white supremacist or racist. Even when it comes to voting, there's so many white people and even Black people that's scared to vote for the candidate of their choice for the fear of being gang stalked, for the fear of being labeled a racist or white supremacist. And it's no more than a smokescreen, because at the end of the day, regardless of how many tears a white person may shed because they're trying to express how sorry they are for what their ancestors have done. In spite of how many jobs white people decide to take unqualified black people, they hire unqualified blacks to make themselves feel good, make themselves or convince themselves that they're not a racist, that they don't discriminate, that they are not a white supremacist, to make that black person feel good. Now, I put it through the test because I know of certain white dudes that are cops that will discuss politics and race among other white people, but when it comes to discussing that topic with me, they remain silent for the fear of offending me. They feel if they tell me what they think, what their political views are, I and others might label them as being a racist or white supremacist. So whites are carrying this guilt that really don't belong to them. It all falls back on the black Americans lifting themselves up out of their condition and rising above poverty. Now, there are so many blacks out there that love to talk about systematic racism. In spite of what whites do to show you that we are not racist, they've even gone as far as giving you home loans in nice neighborhoods that as time went on, you end up destroying. But they gave you these loans because you were saying that they were discriminating against you. You were saying that white people were able to get loans because of white privilege that you weren't able to get, so they started giving you these loans. And many of you have fallen into debt because you can't afford to pay those loans back, or you can afford to pay those loans back, but you fail to pay those loans back because you have other priorities that you set before your responsibilities. I've seen so many people go into debt because they wanted to go to the casino, because they wanted to go out to the club, or they wanted to travel to other countries, knowing that they could not afford it. So they put their bills, their responsibilities on hold to follow their desires, to follow their dreams and aspirations, if you may call it that, but at home, their bills are gone unpaid. So now they're being evicted. Now their mortgage went into foreclosure, but then they blame the white people for doing it. So now we have a bunch of white people that will take the abuse, the verbal abuse from black Americans. Blacks calling them racist names. Blacks have Black Lives Matter. Blacks have the Black Panther Party, black consciousness. But if a white person have a white conscious community, or a white lives matter, or a white power, which they do, they will be labeled as a racist and white supremacist. But at the end of the day, regardless of how much white people try to prove that they're not a racist, that they're not a white supremacist, regardless of how much white people kiss up to black people, to make them feel comfortable, to make them feel like I'm not like them. Regardless of how much they do that, at the end of the day, blacks will still be in poverty. Whites would still own everything. Whites would still be out in the suburbs. Whites are still getting married, although we do have whites that have broken homes, deadbeat baby daddies, deadbeat baby mamas, And a lot of that stuff is coming out now. So black people, or many black people, are surprised because we hear so many white people on paternity court say, I grew up without my father. We grew up believing that all white people were together. Fathers were in the homes. White fathers taking care of their children, but now we're starting to hear more white people say, my father was never there. I grew up without him. So black people are like, oh, we can't believe that. That's hard to believe. Because society, because the media, because of all the shows that we watch on television had us believing that the white family was perfect. The white family was together. The white families had the fathers in the home. But we still see white people marrying. We see the white man and the white woman still united to a certain degree. Yes, they have their feminist movement. They have their lesbians. They have their gays. But at the end of the day, white people are still have a certain type of unity among themselves. We don't see white people destroying their celebrities. We don't see a white man deciding to partner with the NFL and white people attack that white man saying that he's not supposed to do that. We don't see white people going after their stars of entertainment like black people did Bill Cosby, like black people did R. Kelly, like black people do every black person that looks like they're rising above the crabs that's in the barrel. Look at the amount of hate that Jay-Z is getting just for partnering or saying that he's about to partner with the NFL. Look at the amount of hate that's coming at him from black Americans. White people are not doing that. But white people were made to carry the guilt of what black people destroyed. So now in the black community, you have the black man against the black woman, the black children against the black parents. We have black on black crimes and murder that no one talks about. We have the aborting of unborn black babies, where the system is making black women feel proud, basically giving them what they want to murder their own children. And if you speak out against that, now you're racist. So white people are carrying a guilt that really don't belong to them. But the smokescreen is, in spite of how much the media and politician cries white racists and white supremacists and point fingers at each other, and you have white people carrying signs calling other white people white supremacists, calling other white people racist. And I'm looking at them saying like, well, you're white too. And I'm sure you grew up in a home where either yourself or your parents was a racist and you call blacks a racist name. But now you're out in the forefront carrying signs, pointing fingers at each other, calling each other a racist. At the end of the day, you still live in the suburbs. At the end of the day, you have, for the most part, better homes. Yes, there are blacks that live better than whites. There are blacks that have better homes than white people, that have more finances or material possessions than white people do. Yes, we do have that. You're going to always have poor white people. But for the most part, whites are still in control. That's not taking a white person out of their suburban home. White people have better health care in most cases. Yes, there are blacks that have good health care. I have excellent health care from the VA and through Blue Cross. So I have no worries when it comes to healthcare. Plus, I'm in pretty good shape. But at the end of the day, regardless of how much guilt that's placed on white people, at the end of the day, after making blacks feel empowered, after making them feel special, like they're the slow kids on the bus, at the end of the day, white people still live in the suburbs. White people still support white people. I don't see a lot of whites supporting black businesses. Black people don't support black businesses, but they want to tell black people who to vote for. They want black people to jump on their pity wagon. The pity bandwagon that many black people that carry around, they expect you to jump on that bandwagon just because of the melanin in your skin. You black, ain't you? So therefore you have to be a demon crap. But when we have businesses, you don't support us. Everybody want to tell Jay-Z what to do with his business. And would even say we're not going to support him. But nobody supports each other. So at the end of the day, beyond that white guilt smokescreen, whites are still in control. Blacks are still on the bottom with their hands out, saying how white people don't care about us. I saw a tweet on Twitter this week where a Middle Eastern woman had tweeted about how the government don't care about black people. And I'm thinking to myself, like, why did she feel the need to pinpoint black people with all the nationalities and races that's in this world? She chose black people. They don't like black people. But black people need to pick themselves up. They need to stop crying. They need to stop being so weak. And instead of having white people speak out in defense of you, instead of having Middle Eastern people, foreigners, speak out in defense of you, why not stand up for yourself and take what is rightfully yours? Why not stand up for yourselves and at least support each other? Support each other businesses. When a white racist cop decides to take the life of an unarmed black man or woman and he gets convicted, do you know what happens? You have other whites would rally together and support him. They would set up GoFundMe pages. If he had links on his page to support him and he was asking you to go to his PayPal link or Cash App, they would go there and they would support him financially. They would give him the money he needs in support of him. But when it comes to black people, they would end up going broke, like Bill Cosby, like R. Kelly. White women came from the past and said that Bill Cosby sexually assaulted them with no proof, no evidence at all, and black people supported them, jumped on the bandwagon with no evidence. But then they cry and complain about how white people don't like them and they're at the bottom and they're being discriminated against, but yet you discriminate against each other. You refer to each other by racial names. So that white guilt smokescreen, I'm surprised that white people allow the system, allow the media to make them hate themselves. Any white person that stands up and be proud of who they are will be labeled a racist or white supremacist. So in order for white people, like that movie Falling Down in the past, where the white man went on a shooting spree because he started looking around and started seeing things change, and then he became the target. That became a reality today. See, Hollywood shows you what's going to happen before it happens. And it's funny that that movie came out some years ago, and now today we find it happening, where white men are being targeted. White men are made to look like the enemy. White men in their own, well, no, let me take that back, because this is not their land. In the land that they control, they're allowing strangers to dictate to them. They allow strangers to make them hate themselves. And now you have white people condemning white people, and don't realize that when you condemn white people and label white people as being a white racist or a white supremacist, you're condemning yourself. You attacking your people. I've never seen in my life whites come so strongly against their own president, targeting their own president, calling him a racist, a white supremacist, knowing that their parents and even themselves behind closed doors are what they call him. They display more racism and hatred behind their closed doors, but openly they want to pacify the crowd. They carry this guilt. But now you hate yourself. You are afraid to stand up and be proud of who you are as an individual, for the fear of being gang stalked, for the fear of being a white supremacist or a racist. But that's no more than a smokescreen, where you are being programmed and manipulated to hate yourself openly, while the smokescreen is just a smokescreen. The smokescreen is a deception to make black people think that everything is okay, when in reality it's the same and there's no changes, because at the end of the day they're still on the bottom. And white people will go home feeling guilty in their suburban home with their nice bank account, still able to travel the world in many cases. And their children are still growing up being doctors and lawyers, politicians, law enforcement, judges. And black people are still the cleaners, are still the home aides, are still walking up and down the street all day, every day, doing nothing with their lives, still hanging on corners, still killing each other, still calling each other coons and buck dancers and Uncle Ruckus and sellouts, still displaying hate towards each other. So nothing changed behind that smokescreen of white guilt. White people need to stop feeling guilty about something that had nothing to do with you. If anybody has privilege in this country, it's gays and women. Because you have black females that would murder their children, that would do horrific crimes and get away with it. Women, for centuries, for decades, caused so many men to raise children that weren't their own, caused so many men to go to jail, caused so many men to be referred to as a deadbeat and no good, and then later to find out the child that he believed was his is not his. And guess what? Those men don't get their money back, and these females don't see jail time. But they want to talk about white privilege. So, feedback, tell me what you think, subscribe, click on the Cash App button, click on the PayPal link. Until next time, I'm fearless.